NBC. The times in which we do this, when we meet, you and us here at the table, are, I don't have to tell you this, dire. This show has dedicated itself to a jarring pursuit of the uncomfortable truths about our politics and our political leaders and our justice system and, yes, the media. Today, this network is part of that story. On Friday, NBC News announced it had hired Ronna McDaniel as a paid contributor. By Saturday night, it was reported in the Wall Street Journal that MSNBC President Rashida Jones had separated this network from that decision, indicating that Ronna McDaniel would not appear on our air. By Sunday morning, following her first paid appearance on NBC's Meet the Press, my colleague Chuck Todd went full William McAvoy.
Is she speaking for herself, or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? Once at the RNC, she did say that, hey, I'm speaking for the party. I get that. That's part of the job. So what about here? When NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you got to ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News? And when we make deals like this, and I've been at this company a long time, you're doing it for access. Access to audience. Sometimes it's access to an individual. And we can have a journalistic ethics debate about that. And I'm willing to have that debate. So I do think, unfortunately, this interview is always going to be looked through the prism of who is she speaking for.
My colleagues Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski also weighed in this morning.
We weren't asked our opinion of the hiring, but if we were, we would have strongly objected to it for several reasons, including, but not limited to, as lawyers might say, Ms. McDaniel's role in Donald Trump's fake elector scheme and her pressuring election officials to not certify election results while Donald Trump was on the phone.
To be clear, we believe NBC News should seek out conservative Republican voices to provide balance in their election coverage. But it should be conservative Republicans, not a person who used her position of power to be an anti-democracy election denier.
For our part here, we're going to cover this story as part of our ongoing series of conversations about American autocracy, asking the question, or positing the theory that it could happen here. I'm going to read to you an excerpt from Timothy Snyder's On Tyranny. Tim is standing by to talk to us. This is from the first page of the first chapter of On Tyranny. Quote, most of the power of authoritarianism is freely given. In times like these, individuals think ahead about what a more repressive government will want and then offer themselves without being asked. A citizen who adapts in this way is teaching power what it can do, end quote. In this instance, NBC News, either wittingly or unwittingly, is teaching election deniers that what they can do stretches well beyond appearing on our air in interviews to peddle lies about the sanctity and integrity of our elections, which Ronna McDaniel did yesterday at Meet the Press.
Can you say, as you sit here today, did Joe Biden win the election fair and square?
He won. He's the legitimate
Did he win
president.
fair and square?
Fair and square, he won. It's certified. It's done. But I
Ronna,
do think, Kristen,
let me
just say something.
To say that, why has it taken you until now to be able to say
I'm going to
that
push back a little, because I do think it's fair to say there were problems in 2020. And to say that does not mean he's not the legitimate
Ronna,
president.
when you
there were no problems. But what we've also said to election deniers is not just they can do that on our airwaves, but that they can do that as one of us, as badge-carrying employees of NBC News, as paid contributors to our sacred airwaves. Joining us now, Yale University history professor, author of the aforementioned and quoted from best-selling book On Tyranny, 20 Lessons for the 20th Century, Timothy Snyder. One of my colleagues sent me a screenshot of that first page, and it gave me chills. And I thought, if I have an opportunity, and I have to say, nobody at this company stopped me from having this conversation with you, and I'm grateful for that. That this was the part of the story that I found most haunting. That what you write is that authoritarianism doesn't come in and take things, but what they do is they learn and they operate in the spaces that they're given. And I wondered through that lens how you see this development and what warnings you have for the media.
I do see it in exactly those terms. What NBC has done is they've invited into what should be a normal framework someone who doesn't believe that that framework should exist at all. What NBC has done of its own volition is bring into a very important conversation about our democracy, one which is going to take place for the next 7 months or so, someone who Ronna McDaniel, who tried to disassemble our democracy, who personally took part in the attempt to undo the American system. And so bringing that in without questioning it is obeying in advance, because essentially what NBC is doing is saying, well, could be that in 24, our entire system will break down. Could be we'll have an authoritarian leader. Oh, but look, we've made this adjustment in advance because we brought into the middle of NBC somebody who has already taken part in the attempt to take our system down. So yeah, I think this is pretty bad.
Timothy, what is the red line? I mean, I have to just say, the other elephant in the room is that I myself have benefited from this network's willingness to add Republicans to its payroll and welcome us into the family. But it seems that Mike Pence wouldn't necessarily be on the other side of that line. Certainly Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger wouldn't be on the other side of that line. But I wonder, you know, the reading of On Tyranny, which I did again over the weekend, is all about what good actors do, and it's getting at this place that you're talking about, that a good faith actor putting into the conversation someone that changes the Overton window actually advances the authoritarian's cause.
Mm-hmm. No, it changes the frame completely. I mean, as far as what lines one could draw, in my mind, it doesn't at all have to do with what party you belong to. Although you might say that what Ronna McDaniel did was help transform the Republican Party into a kind of personality cult, which is where we're heading now, right? That's essentially where she's left it. But that's another issue. The lines for me would be things like, if you are going to be on American media, you should be somebody who believes that there is something called truth, that there are things called facts, that you can pursue them. You shouldn't be someone who has over and over and over again pushed the idea of fake news, educated Americans away from the facts, away from a belief in the facts. And a second red line would be something like this. If we're going to be putting people on the news who have participated in an attempt to overthrow the system, then we have to ask at the very beginning, why did you do that? Why is that legitimate? And we have to ask ourselves, why is it that we are taking this step to bring people into the middle of our discussion? So my two red lines would be, you should be somebody who is at least trying to go after the facts, and you shouldn't be somebody who has taken part in the attempt to undo the system, which is what we're talking about here. We shouldn't mince words about it. When she took part from December of 2020 at the latest in an attempt to change the American system by knowingly bringing in these false electoral slates. That's really something quite extraordinary.
Timothy, what should people do who want to end up on the right side of these questions about making sure we're not willingly handing over our airwaves or willingly handing over our power?
Well, I mean, one thing is take a deep breath and think about the overall structure of the system, because it's not just a matter of opinions. It's a matter of structures. And two basic structures that we have are, one, the belief in factuality. If everybody gives up on factuality, at the end of the day, there won't be an NBC or an MSNBC. There won't be media in the sense that we believe in them. And so then it should be an alarm bell should ring if you're dealing with people who have said fake news over and over and over again. Another thing people should think about is they should make a distinction between, again, it's not about Democrats or Republicans or conservatives or liberals or progressives or whatever it might be. It's about people who sincerely believe that we have a constitution which allows us, which gives us a framework for discussion, a framework for this section of power. Or are we talking about people who really believe that this system is done for, that we should have one person rule? Right? And it's perfectly fine so long as you have that one person to put him in power against the rules and just let him sit there. That's a completely different category of person. And we now know, because we have the experience of January 2021, who was on what side of the line. We've had a trial run. We know who's on what side of the line, and we can't pretend that we don't have that knowledge.
Tim, can you say something about appeasement? Because so much of the subtext of this is seeking to appease an opposing view. I mean, there's this notion that if you appear on opinion television, you'll anger the Trump side, and then, maybe you can't work in the White House unit if Trump wins. There's this instinct to treat him normal and to sort of appease the other political side. But your point is that that's the wrong frame to have around all of our thinking.
Yeah, normalizing him is beyond your power. You're not going to have access to the White House in any kind of normal sense because there won't be a White House in the normal sense. If Trump is in office, we're dealing with somebody who has already said, and we have every reason to believe him, that he's going to persecute his political opponents. He's going to persecute the people he regards as espousing fake news, which is precisely anybody who says what he doesn't want to say. So this is not a normal political situation where you give a little and you get a little. You can give as much as you want to Trump between now and November, but you're not going to get anything back in January 21. And the perverse thing is that if you practice giving things away to Trump now over the next 7 months, all you have done is practice. All you've done is gotten better at appeasing him after January of 25, should he win. So this is like a trial run for NBC and everyone else to say, okay, we're going to practice appeasing a dictator. And then when the dictator comes, we're going to be better at it. Is that what you should be doing? I don't think so.
Tim Snyder, it's a scary thing to cover your own place of employment. The page is seared into my brain. I've read it so many times now, and to get to talk to you about it today is a privilege. Thank you so much.
I appreciate your doing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Good friend of the program, good friend of mine, David Jolly. Stay with us. David Jolly's still here. I'm grateful for that. These conversations are hard to have,
Sure.
but I think if you don't have them, then what are we doing here?
That's exactly right. And the viewers deserve the conversation because the viewers want a seat at the table and they want to be heard. In many ways, this is a conversation about the role of media, about decisions of news enterprises. But the viewers of this platform in particular, for at least 8 years, have found a home here for conversations around protecting democracy. And what they saw in the hiring of Ronna McDaniel is a decision to bring on board someone who's a liar. She lied to the American people in advancement of undermining democracy. She lied to the American people to further the autocratic movement that is Trumpism. And I think those two elements are why the viewers have grown so concerned. You cannot platform a lie and give it the credibility merely of a competing opinion. To do so abandons all critical thinking. And the abandonment of critical thinking then undermines what is even the role of the media. We have seen media outlets already abandon critical thinking. The viewers don't want that to happen here. And then the second is this question of the lie in advancement of what? The lie was in advancement of stealing the franchise of voters and viewers, of undermining democracy and advancing autocracy. And in a free democracy where the media does play a role in being the backstop to protecting democracy and protecting one's franchise, to bring on a voice that suggests that no, none of what you actually saw was true. There's this counter narrative over here, jam-packed with lies, but I'm going to ask you to give me respect for that opinion. That's why the viewers feel betrayed. They feel betrayed, and they're asking to be heard.
The other thing I think that we have to really hold a mirror up to is there's this reputation that MSNBC is somehow, different, maybe less than, because we platform opinion.
Sure.
I will tell you, over the last 48 hours, it has been the opinion anchors most upset about the liar. And I won't say most. I won't say most, because I think Chuck Todd made clear that he went first. He did something really brave. I talked to him yesterday. I said, I'm knitting you a cape. So let me take back the word most. But it's not about the ideological spectrum. It's not, as Tim said, it's not who you vote for. It's, do you start at a shared set of facts?
A shared set of facts, which speaks to the line, and shared set of values, which is the advancement of democracy in the United States for all people. And as you and I have discussed, it's a little intriguing because we each have participated in a party that ultimately produced Donald Trump, but where I would suggest this is radically different. Not asking for forgiveness for my own sins as a Republican, but it is important. You participated in the McCain camp to push back and try to stop the Tea Party emergence that ultimately led to Donald Trump. Michael Steele participated in the autopsy to try to create a bigger tent Republican Party to speak to more people. As a member of Congress, I opposed Donald Trump, denounced him. I sided with Democrats on marriage and guns and a lot of other issues. We understood this journey is not always a fight against each other, but it is a fight for the future of the country. Ronna McDaniel sees this as a fight against each other. And that is a zero-sum game where Republicans must win. That's reason to question her voice in this conversation.
I have one more question for you. I had to sneak in a quick break first. Don't go anywhere today. As we do often, I want to read you Liz Cheney's reaction to all of this. Liz Cheney tweeted this: Ronna facilitated Trump's corrupt fake elector plot and his effort to pressure Michigan officials not to certify the legitimate election outcome. She spread his lies and called January 6, quote, legitimate political discourse. That's not taking one for the team. It is enabling criminality and depravity.
The big lie was the predicate for January 6th, which led to hundreds of arrests by the Department of Justice and ultimately now a pending trial of the former president of the United States. That is a result of the work not just of Donald Trump, but of the former Republican National Committee chairperson, Ronna McDaniel. There is a reason that Liz Cheney, who saw all of this up front and saw the damage that was done to the nation at the hands of Trump and McDaniel today, is angry. And I think she's as angry as many viewers who are watching right now.
Thank you for being here on this day. Thank you for coming and staying for this conversation. You actually are coming back in the next hour for more politics. Coming up for us at the top of the next hour at Reprieve, but the clock still ticks away for the ex-president. He's just a few days before he has to cough up nearly $200 million. Story's next.